something I always say is the difference between like knowing your worth and proving it. So you can see a job and know that you can do it, right? You can know like, yo, I will kill this job if I get it. Like I know that I can do it, but you have to prove that, right? If somebody's hiring you, whether it's freelance or an employer looking to hire you full time, they're taking a chance.
Welcome back to Have a Map, where we talk all things career. I'm your host, Mamadou Njai, and we are here. I'm sure we'll actually get into some sneaker talk, which I'm excited for. I don't even think we've ever talked about sneakers on the podcast. Oh, this is gonna be a great day. Um, but before we get started, I want to introduce one of our interns who's done a great job, really just bought into the system and giving it his all and taking some advice. And he's, moving forward after this. So we're excited for him. But before we talk too much, Adam, go ahead, introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, thanks, Mo. What up, y'all? I'm Adam. I'm a social media intern with Dim Events. And it's just to keep it short, it's been a really fun process so far. So anybody listening who wants to become an intern, I highly recommend it. I was born and raised in Wisconsin, and right now I'm a senior about to graduate from UW Whitewater. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Cool. And he's a huge Kid Cudi fan. Runs the Kid Cudi fan page. That's popping. So he know it all. But yeah, and our guest for today, I was talking about this when he came and spoke to the interns, but we actually met via social media in Detroit, one of my favorite cities. People always be trying to sleep on Detroit. I'm like, look, y'all need to pull up out there. It's dope.
Tell
But
them, tell them.
wanna introduce my guy Don. Don, what's up, man? Say what's up to the people.
What up, though? What's good? Yo, Mo, Adam, appreciate y'all having me, man. Excited to get into some questions, answer anything that y'all got for me, man. Like you said, like from Detroit has my heart, it's my home. I'm based out of Chicago right now, but we make it work. And I'm excited to drop any gems that y'all might want to hear.
Definitely. And just to give us a reference, what is the work that you actually do? Can you kind of give us the title and then we'll walk through what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So right now I'm the director of marketing for Foot Locker, what we call the Central Geo. So essentially, I have a region that encompasses Detroit, Chicago, Dallas, and Houston. And in those cities, I have community marketing managers. And basically, their role is to make sure that Foot Locker as a brand is one, staying authentically connected to the cities that our people, our stores, our associates are in, and also making sure that we're staying front of mind with our consumer, both from a product standpoint through events, but then more importantly through community. Something that we do, a really big initiative of ours is give backs, and how are we genuinely providing those cities that we operate in, across the country, with the resources, the tools, the education that they need, even if it's not sneaker related, right? It's just like, how are we really supporting those communities and people?
I know I've seen like your Instagram, some of the things you've done. It's a lot of in-person work. So with COVID, I'm sure that's changed a lot of the stuff you do. How has it been, maybe pre-COVID, and then how has kind of your everything you do for work, how has that changed as the pandemic's been rolling through?
No, for sure, man. Events were a large part of what we do. Like we built what we call community stores. Detroit actually had the very first one, followed shortly afterwards by Philly. And we're kind of opening those stores across the country. But either way, with our community stores, a big component of that was what we call an activation space, which if you think about it, it's like a dedicated space inside of our stores for us to host events. So to answer the first part of the question, before COVID, it was like the goal was to pack that out as many times out of the year as possible, making sure that we were like staying super active, getting people inside the. And then it went completely different, right? It was like, we don't, one, we're going to close for months as we were figuring out COVID. Then two, it became, how are we still engaging with people in a safe way during this time? So as you could imagine, that shifted largely to digital. So while people were still at home, bored, or just not able to go out and do things like while we were quarantined for so long. We had to come up with different strategies to keep people engaged through social media. So you guys are probably familiar with things like verses and different IG live conversations that came out. So we really rode a wave of doing that just from our own lens. So similar things that we may have done before, we were just tying into cultural moments. So things like I'm sorry, what was the big Jordan documentary that came out? I can't even think of the name right now.
Last Dance.
Last Dance, yeah.
Last Dance, right? So the Last Dance, we created content around that because everybody's watching it every week when the new episode came out, kind of thing. But it was so much sneaker culture within that documentary, right? Because it was like Jordan's whole history from 85 as a rookie until like retirement, right? Kind of thing. So it's like, how are we playing on the sneakerhead kid who's watching this maybe for the first time, kind of thing, but also that nostalgia of the people who are fans of his from so many, decades ago at this point. So that was one play. It was like making sure we were staying active through social media, but not just making posts, but doing things people can engage with. So we had IG live conversations with notable sneakerheads in our cities, kind of thing. We did different things surrounding mental health and wellness, knowing like when people are at home and everybody's not reacting to that in the best way, right? It's not something that we're used to. Fortunately for us, with some of our locations, like our 8 Mile store in Detroit, we were able to open a sneak through window, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a drive through window for sneakers, right? But that also allowed us to do some socially distant events. So we were still able to do a back to school drive for the kids. So it didn't look the same as last year. And was more of a pull up and pick up situation. So it's like, hey, we got over 2,000 book bags full of pencils, notebooks, school supplies. So all you have to do is pull up, roll down your window, pop your trunk, whatever you're comfortable with. We drop it in and you can keep going. Kind of thing. So we were still able to engage, throughout the pandemic in those different ways. So it wasn't easy, right? But it was, you have to be innovative and, kind of roll with the times, and social media is a huge tool, right? At any given time, you could communicate with thousands of people. We take a lot of pride in building out what we call like our localized pages. So there's a Foot Locker Detroit page specifically for the Detroit market and consumer, right? There's one that we're just now kind of building out for Chicago, right? We know there's a lot of overlap. They say Chicago and the D is cousins, right? But the conversation, the slang, how we talk is different too, right? So when we do hire people to manage those pages, work in our community stores, no matter what city is in, we make sure those people are from that city, so when they speak, it's authentic. When we want to connect back to the community, they know these people, they know these organizations that are within our city, so we could create really genuine relationships. So yeah, man. So it wasn't easy, but it was a lot of pivoting and a lot of innovation. But also just watching what works, what doesn't, kind of thing. The sneak through has done well for us, but it's also something we have to continue to innovate. That was our first stab at it, right? Kind of think it was one, it was safe. People could pull up and not have to go into the store, or we have capacity issues. You can pick up your shoes from your car. We offered a menu of kind of like popular items. Sometimes those items were like things like Air Force Ones are kind of common items, but we were finding out the consumer wanted more options, right? They still wanted that, so we have to take that feedback consistently and make sure that we're applying it, so it's something where you can't be stagnant, and this is something we're probably going to continue whenever this is over, because it makes sense. And it's another point of convenience for the customer. So it's a lot of learning, like I said, a lot of pivoting, a lot of innovation, but just being open to trying new things and see where it takes you.
Oh, that's fire. One thing I wanted to ask, since we're going to talk about Foot Locker and sneakers, what is your go-to Jordan? I think I can guess from the background, but I just, what's your go-to Jordan?
My go-to or my favorite?
Let's say favorite, and then we can go to go-to.
So my go-to right now is I'm actually wearing them. Like Mocha ones. Like, yeah, like I actually hit on these on sneakers. I didn't even get these. This wasn't on my radar for sure, right? It was one of those shoes where I was like on the fence on. But once I got them, I was like, I wear them a few times a week now. Like, I wanted people who like, if I like that shoe, I wear it to death. These and like Carmine sixes are probably like my go-to sneakers right now during the week. Like, I just cop stuff that I like. I don't care if it's hype or not, and I just wear it. And I just wear it. Then like my favorite are like fire red, like Jordan sixes though. So this is the 2009 pair. So these are like 10, 11. These are old, right? These are over a decade old. Like, I can't even really wear them because they're like will start to separate, right?
Yep.
But I still wore them like anyway. But these are my number one favorite Jordan of all time. Like, I got infrared sixes, I got all the newer releases, but like the fire reds from that year or the ones out of the pack are my favorite ones, like hands down. It's just like you can wear it with whatever. I already and don't have a drop of red on anywhere else in my outfit. Don't care. These are my favorites right here.
Let's talk about how you even got started though in this space, because when I first met you, you weren't working with Foot Locker, correct? That was what, 2017, 2018?
Yep, I wasn't with them. January is my 2-year mark with Foot Locker. So yeah, I'm still relatively new to the company. So yeah, before that, I wasn't with them. During that time I met you, I'm trying to remember where I was working at the time, but I know I was doing a lot of like freelance work during that time too. But I wasn't with Foot Locker yet. Nope.
Gotcha. So how do you get started within that space? Walk us kind of through your career path to get to Foot Locker working in that space, because I know that's a unique story for you.
Yeah, for sure. I try to put it in the Cliff Notes version. Uh, but no, man. So like us just chopping up how we were doing about sneakers. I've always been into sneaker culture really heavily. Um, I was excited by it. I thought it was dope. It was something I just gravitated to as sneaker blogs and things like that kind of became more prevalent. In Detroit, we really didn't have a lot of like sneaker boutiques for real. We had Bob's Classic Kicks, in Midtown Detroit on Woodward. We had Burn Rubber and Roy Woke. And even during that time, they were still kind of in their infancy. So we had a sneaker culture for sure, but it wasn't like it is today where you're like surrounded by it. You can get whatever without leaving your house. You can get off the app or whatever. It was just different. So people who were into sneakers were really into sneakers, right? Kind of thing. But during that time, I started working. One, I wanted to get a job in the sneaker industry, right? So I started working at just in retail, So like one of my first jobs was actually at Finish Line. So I started there as a sales associate. Before that, I was flipping burgers at Wendy's. And one of the dudes who worked there with me, he worked at Finish Line too. So I would see him when I went to the mall, because I would go to the mall even if I couldn't buy shoes, right? I would go just to see what was new, what was out, just to stay like current or whatever, right? That was the internet then. It was like you had to go see it, right? So I seen my man there and I was like, yo, like, how, bro? How do you work in a shoe store? Like, tell me how you do this. And he's like, oh, that's my store manager. Like, just go talk to him, blah, 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 blah. I ended up going up there every week until the dude gave me an interview. And yeah, from there I started as a sales associate. I worked my way up through management as I was kind of in college, So while I was in college, I actually went to school for mechanical engineering, and it sucked, right? I just was like, yo, I was good at it. I did well, I got good grades, I was on the dean's list. I was doing everything was cool. And then at that time, I noticed I'd actually started creating my own t-shirts that match sneakers. And my brand was called Stay Laced, which is like reflects my Instagram name, Stay Laced Don, right? And the idea was that they were just t-shirts that match shoes. So you didn't have to wear the same shirt that you see on the mannequin at the mall. You didn't have to dress like a mannequin. You could like still be fresh, but have your own kind of like style with it, right? My designs were terrible. I was not good. I had no creative background whatsoever at that time. But I started to travel to sneaker conventions to sell my shirts, right? So I went to SneakerCon in Ohio, SneakerCon in Chicago, SneakerCon in New York. And while I was there, I saw how big the sneaker culture really was, and that served as a lot of my background, because I was doing like my own photo shoots for like my own clothes. So I was managing my own social media page, I was traveling to these events and doing different things, and I wanted to bring that back home. At the time, we didn't really have sneaker events in Detroit or in Michigan for real. And this was like right when like Lace Smitten and Michigan Sneaker Exchange started, which were like some of our first real sneaker conventions in Detroit, right? And it was dope. You know, the culture was growing bigger and bigger. You know, so I found myself doing all these things I enjoyed on like nights and weekends, right? It was like on the weekends, at sneaker events and art events and creating these designs and doing these things. But I spending my week at school doing whatever that I didn't really enjoy, right? But I was told like, oh, this is a career that's going to make you a lot of money. You're going to be good, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't not true. They were right. But I thought about it in the sense of like, this is something I want to do for the next 40 years of my life, next 50 years of my life, right? Regardless of how much money I'm making, I want to be happy and excited about how I'm spending 40 hours a week doing something or more, right? Uh, you know, so from there, I tried to shift my perspective to more creative fields. So I slowly got toward I did design engineering because it was like, oh, cool, I get to draw, do some different things. And I went toward graphic design because I was at a point where I was like, yo, I just need to hone my skills so I could be better at the designs I was making and eventually, hopefully, work at like another like business that's within the sneaker industry, right? So I wanted to go toward a graphic thinking like, oh, I could do some graphics, I could do logos, I could do social media, it could make sense for me, you know, in that way. And it was cool. You know, I ended up really building my skills up. I took drawing classes out of pocket. You know, I went to Western Michigan for a little while. You know, so just so I could learn some basic techniques. When I did get into graphic design, I kind of had to start over because I took like every math class possible while being an engineer for ultimately no reason, right? And I'm taking these art classes. I'm just like, man, this is kind of like, for me, it was kind of getting in the way because I was like, yo, like I have to go manage my event after this because I started having my own events, you know, kind of thing. So I started having small kind of sneaker themed art events at Bob's Classic Kicks, actually. So it was a mixture of hip hop, poetry, just spoken word, kind of open mic. I invited artists from the city who just made sneaker themed artwork and they put it on display, and it was all at a sneaker boutique, right? So it wasn't the convention, but it was all the things I liked about sneaker culture all in one place. And I just really started to dig into that more and more over time, you know. So I was working different jobs within retail. You know, I worked at, like I said, I worked at Finish Line. I eventually left there to go to No Joe Kicks, you know, a pretty like, you know, premier sneaker boutique in Detroit. And I actually took a pay cut to go there because they allowed me to flex like my creative muscle more. So I was, you know, managing stores in different locations with Finish Line. I was making straight bread. But at Nojo, I was able to do social media. I was able to do digital photography. I was able to help with buying what products that was in the store and things like that. I just had more flexibility, you know, that I knew was going to serve me better later, you know. So at this point, I stopped going to school. So like I never finished college, right? So I always tell people that just so they know, you know, that that's like a thing for me. But I always tell people that you have to take your education seriously. So whether it's you finish school or whether it's not for you, I don't think it's for everybody, but you have to have a plan either way, right? So if you are going to school, it's like, cool, there's 1,000 other kids graduating the same year as you know, how are you separating yourself from the pack? So yes, definitely get that degree, definitely get that background in education, but you also need to intern, you know, kind of thing. Also need to find these other things. So for me, knowing that I wasn't finishing school, I knew I had to go harder in these other areas so that I could still build my resume. So it was there was no question of could I do something, right? It was like it was proven. You can see it, right? You can see the results, you know. So from Nojo, I just worked in different jobs at retail, and again, I just really wasn't happy, right? But I was still doing all of these events, you know, in the city, from give back events to sneaker themed events. And eventually I just shifted my mindset and I was like, hey, instead of me just applying to these jobs I know I can get because I have a retail background, like let me really focus my energy on getting into a position that I really want. And I knew I wanted to either be in marketing or social media. I know I wanted it to be within streetwear or sneakers. So I stopped applying for things. I just stopped, and I just was like, yo, I'm only going to focus on jobs that really suit what I want to do. Um, and literally, like, it feels like the day after I started thinking like that, the position I have with Foot Locker came up on like LinkedIn or something, right? And I was reading through it, like community, marketing, sneakers. I was like, oh, like this. I was like, this is for me, for sure, for me, right? And the funny thing is, like, I applied for it. I had probably like 6 different interviews, right? With all the different people in the marketing department, all corporate people who work in New York that I never talked to before. It's all via Zoom and Skype and stuff like that. And largely my interview was more so about the things I did outside of work than my actual work history. It was like, oh, like you did this event. How did that go? How did you do this? How did you plan it? Because I was, what I realized is that it's when you're self-taught, you wear a lot of hats and you do a lot of things, but you don't always know what to call them. So when I was sending out this email blast to the different sneaker influencers in the city and these different local media outlets, I didn't know that I was low-key doing press releases, right? I didn't know that I was doing like event curation and managing when I was doing these things. I was just doing things that I enjoyed and loved, but I didn't know, like, yo, you're managing vendors. You know what I'm saying? You're creating this experience for people and you have measurable results, So it was like, yo, oh, sweet, kind of thing. So it added up to something that was tangible. And I had to really like just put my weight on the real life experience that I created for myself, So have a map, right? But with, school, a lot of times you learn things in theory, right? You don't always learn how they attach that to the real world, or you don't get real world experience. So it's like, definitely get the education, but you have to go out here and do it too, So fast forward, I was a community marketing manager for Foot Locker for 2 years, specific to Detroit. So I played a big role in us building out our original community store. Like I told you guys, it was the first one in the country. And I just, I ran with it. I did my thing with that. And last November, I was actually promoted to a director. So that's like, what I said during the intro. Like, so now my region encompasses not just Detroit, but also Chicago, Dallas, Houston, kind of like the Midwest down to Texas. And then, right now those are like our focus cities, but eventually it'll be kind of like anything in between that as well. So that was the journey. I tried to shorten it down for you guys, but that's
No.
That's how I went.
That was great. And I just want to break down a lot of the stuff that you talked about, because students are always asking, like, how do I get to this career? How do I get to this career? And a lot of the time you can create that path for yourself. But like hearing people's stories like you, where it's just like, hey, I was doing what I was doing, but I was also doing stuff outside of my 9 to 5 or outside of my work. And I shifted it because I realized this is really what I wanted to do. And even taking that pay cut, right, and building out like more experience. That's why I always say experience is so important, whether it's an individual thing or something that you do with like an internship or something that you do with your friends. Build out as much experience and have those examples tangible.
Yeah.
And like, now I see interns, anybody, whether it's marketing, whether it's PR, they all got their own website. If you could put that on a website and make it look fly, and like, oh, this person knows exactly what we want and what we need. And I think that's so valuable. So valuable.
Yeah, that's facts, bro. And it's like, what I would say too is like, when you're looking to build your experience, look for relevant experience, right? Because I've been in positions where I'm a director, right? So I'm hiring for all these different cities. I'm looking at resumes all the time throughout the week. Excuse me. And sometimes people have a lot of experience, but it's all over the place. It's not focused, or it doesn't apply to what the industry they want to be in, right? It's different. It's different. There are things that kind of like expand across, especially in things that are as broad as marketing. But when you get specific to certain industries, if someone has more specific than you, then it's like, well, that's a better choice for us most of the time, right? And something somebody told me, again, like when I was working like in the retail side at stores, I was a manager and they were pissed all the time because like I didn't have good availability because I was also trying to take classes, right? So they're like, what are you even in school for? And I'm like, I'm in school for graphic design. And they was like, well, how much do graphic designers even make? And I had never asked myself that question. I just was doing something I thought was cool, right? So I was like, I don't know. I started to look it up. And at that time, it was like entry level was like 40K or something like that, right? Which at that time I wasn't making nothing close to that. So I was like, that sounds like a lot of money, right? And then it's like, oh man, like if you stay here and become a store manager or whatever the next level is, it was like at minimum you'll be making 60. And I was like, word. I started to think about it differently, but I just still knew I didn't want to work physically in a store anymore. But what it made me think about was I need to start looking at these jobs and positions I want to be in as if I'm already there.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're in school, you kind of focused on school, right? But like start looking at resumes. Start looking at applications for jobs that you might want and look at what they're asking for so you can start to fill your resume with relevant experience. So if it's like, oh, we're looking for somebody who has experience in these 5 core things, it's like, yo, they're giving you the roadmap right there. You know what I'm saying? Like you might not be applying until you're done with school. It might be 2 or 3 years until you're done with school, but at least you know what they're looking for ahead of time, so you can start to build that experience now. So you have even more relevant experience. Then you ever look at a application and it's like, yo, you have to have like 5 years experience, and it's like, bro, I just got out of school last week.
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago, I was probably in high school. Like how? You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to start building that, as soon as possible, kind of thing. But definitely look at those positions like as if you wanted to start tomorrow, right? Just start looking, and that way you can know, what they're looking for as, people who are hiring.
No, that's great advice. I definitely got to add that to the repertoire. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, that's literally, like you said, the roadmap of what you're doing. And I always say, like, even if you don't have all of it, if you have a few of them, still put yourself out there. Because I think that's a space where, sometimes people can be flexible depending on what type of experience you have. Like they can be pretty flexible to hire people.
I would say, if it's something you're interested in, and like you said, you got a few of those things, you check a few of those boxes, like go for it. At the very least, if you get an interview and don't get it, right, kind of things, like you might have made a new contact. You building your interview skills, that's a real thing. Like understanding like what to say, as they're, going through these questions, because a lot of questions are the same. You'll notice like a lot of them are like questions that HR have come up with, kind of thing, based on the role. So I definitely think if you're like, yo, like, let me look, just look, you know what I'm saying, and see, and that'll really provide you with some insight into what you need to start building for like your career and your future.
Yeah, kind of going off that, like, I know for me personally, I've had a lot of interviews with places where, to me, I didn't even think I really qualified to be interviewing with, but they gave me a chance, and even if I didn't get the job, I learned how to talk about myself better, how to tell them, about me and things I've done, that maybe other people haven't. That sets me apart, and it's helped me to secure a full-time job after school, which is really nice. But not everybody's map is the same, and I can definitely attest to that with what you've told us. Like, not everybody has to graduate school in order to be a successful person and do what you want. But yeah, so thank you for dropping those gems on us. I appreciate that.
For sure, man. Yeah, like you said, like you got to have a plan regardless.
So kind of going over to the next topic. I know you seem like a really busy person with everything you've explained and all that. So with that busy schedule, what are some things that you do to kind of take care of yourself? Some self-care tips, anything that you do that kind of helps you to ease your mind during the days?
Yeah, and full transparency, I'm working on it. Right. Like many people, especially like young professionals, I think we kind of just like dive in. We just like kind of just go around go mode, all the time. Um, Sometimes we forget to look up and take a breather, kind of thing. So one thing that I've been getting better at is one, just starting your day and having an actual morning. Like if y'all are anything like me, it's like you wake up to notifications and you're just like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. You start looking at your calendar and it's like, yo, if your workday starts at 9, like, I can obviously start working before then, but I get up at like 6, right? Like I just wake up early as I do. Like I'm not like one of the people that I have to get up because I have so much to do or go to the gym. No, I just wake up because I want to be able to chill before I start my day, right? I want to be able to like take a shower, like eat breakfast if I want to, just like listen to some music and kind of just like plan my day before just like, oh my God, I got to get into it and, kind of thing. Because how you start your day is how you end it. So it's like, yo, if you start off just like hectic, I got a million things to do, and you're just kind of trying to bust through them from the moment you wake up, you're going to be tired and stressed throughout the day. Um, and then taking a break from the things that make you stressful, I really like Instagram because I like visual representation. So I like really dope photography. I like seeing like I follow a lot of like footwear brands and streetwear brands that I like. It serves as like inspiration. But social media can be so draining, right? And then it's like also part of my job to be on social media. So like, at any like the last couple of months, I was managing two separate social media accounts for work, and then also co-managing the social media account for one of my own personal brands, right? So it's like, and then I have my own social media page, right? So I'm logged into like 4 or 5 different pages. It's just notifications all day, right? So like it'll be days where it's like, yo, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going on do not disturb until like I fall asleep. Whatever emails come to me in the evening, they are going to be there in the morning, right? Kind of thing. So knowing when to shut off as well, and being okay with it. Like you don't have to get to your phone every 5 minutes. You don't have to get to every message every 5 minutes. So you have to identify those things that make you stressed out or give you anxiety throughout the day, and learn how to manage them. So if you're sitting there thinking like, oh my God, I got to reply to so many things, it's like, yeah, you do. You're going to have to reply to them at some point. You know what I'm saying? But you have to create a way of managing that so that it is less stressful for you. So when you're having to do that work, it's not going away. You still have to do this. You still have to get your work done. But how can you do that? So also like what I'll do is like, hey, if I am just having a day, sometimes you just have a day that you're just off. It's like I'll give myself like I call it like a power hour. And it's just like, yo, I'm about to just go in, I'm just about to like knock out, I got my to-do list, I'm a really organized person. So I literally like always have like a to-do list with me. Like, and I write it down so I can have the joy of crossing it off later. Right. So it's like, yo, but I'm like, yo, I'm about to knock out at least these 3 tasks before I end my day. Like this is my last thing I'm doing today with you guys, and then I'm going to have a drink immediately afterwards. I'm doing no more work, right? Because it's like that's going to help me relax and chill, so I can be smooth tomorrow.
That's funny that you brought up that list because like I do the exact same thing. I write it down on my phone. I think it'd actually be better doing it on paper like you do. But I always have the glory to cross off every single thing that I get done. But I'll have to start incorporating that power hour thing that you're talking about because that sounds like something I could really focus in on and just, get stuff done.
Yeah, man, you just gotta like, like I said, like I like writing my list out. I usually on my phone I have notes for like other stuff I do, like I have to go to the grocery store or stop by here or whatever kind of thing, and I can kind of bullet point it out. But like right now, for example, with like Chicago, Detroit, and like Houston, we're managing events and like I said, social media content in like all of those cities. So I have to be able to like see it so I can say like I can prioritize it and lay it out. That's just how my mind works. Like you said, like that feeling of being able to just like, okay, I got that. I'm good. Next, like yeah. So like those power hours help me out a lot too,
man. So kind of going to the next question here, do you have any advice for, maybe for me or for somebody else out there who is wanting to, maybe start right away tomorrow of getting into the industry that you're in?
Yeah. My advice would be to, like I said, one, start looking at those applications, start just looking at jobs. I personally hate LinkedIn, but go on LinkedIn, make sure you're updating your information, talk to people, hit people up. You can literally talk to the CEO of this company, the VP of this company. I've had people apply for positions and the recruiter didn't send it to me, but like the VP of the department did because they hit them up on LinkedIn. They was like, hey, this guy seems cool. Let's see what you think. Right. So they literally were able to, I'm not telling you to take shortcuts, but networking is a big part of it. But what I would say is that, like I said again about knowing your worth and proving it, it's like you don't want to get all the way to that interview stage or that position, and then you realize you don't have the experience or the know-how to fill the role, right? It's like you got there, so the way I ask my like friends, it's like, yo, like if you got that opportunity you want right now, right? If you are a rapper, a singer, a photographer, and somebody walked in and you met Kanye today or something, right? It's like, okay, cool. You say you can rap. All right, like show me your YouTube page or show me your Instagram page. Like, is it, of course, people are always going to say like, oh yeah, I'm ready for the opportunity, but like, are you actually ready for it if it came up to you today? Kind of thing. Are you able to like show somebody that you can actually do the work? Right. So I would say like do the work now. So when an opportunity comes up, it's gonna come up, right? Like I think that success is a mixture of opportunity and preparation, right? So it's like when those opportunities come up, are you prepared for it? So it's like, hey, like start doing internships. It sounds obvious, but like do them. I didn't do internships. What I did was I hit up sneaker boutiques while I was in college, and I acted like I was doing an interview for school, and I just asked them how they got started and hoped that they would talk to me, right? And that just gave me insight into what they were doing, and like how they had started their businesses, right? And it gave me insight into like, yo, like, okay, cool. Like everybody's background is different. Not all of these people did this, but they did do X, Y, and Z, right? So you really have to figure out where you want to be, and again, like what are the top few things that you need to have in your bag of tricks in your experience that fulfill that, right? So just you have to start doing the work somewhere, and if you don't see opportunity for yourself, sometimes you have to create it.
Great advice. Great advice. Gems all throughout this whole podcast. We appreciate it. But before we wrap up, I want to ask, our favorite question on this podcast towards the end. If you could, and this is for everyone, if you could take the last few days or the last week and describe it, or maybe, if you want to get fancy, pair it with a song, an artist, or an album, which one would it be and why? And if you don't want to go first, Don, you can pick who you want to go first. Since you're a guest, you can let us know.
No, I can go. My favorite rapper is Currency. And he drops music all the time. Like he has like a million songs, right? But one of his newest projects is a song. I don't want to butcher the name of it, but it's called I think it's called "The Ancestors Smiled on Me." At least that's how the chorus goes. It's like the second song on like his latest project, right? And it's just like it's really smooth, it's really dope, and I like it because it's like throughout the verses he talks about like this, stuff he's going through, right? But during the chorus he's talking about how he feels like blessed and fortunate for where he's at, where what he's been through, and how it's like contributed to his success, and sometimes I have those moments where I'm like stressed out, because it's been like such a busy week, kind of thing. It's been a busy few days. And like I can listen to that because it's just a vibe, right? But then it's like also I feel that, right? It's just like, yo, like as stressful as some of these things may be or all these projects may be, like I'm grateful to be in those positions. They kind of help bring me to where I am today, right? And then it's like also like I was saying earlier, like I've been interviewing people for different positions all throughout my region. And you sometimes don't think about how many people have really been affected by the pandemic, but there are people who lost their jobs immediately and have still not found work. There are people who are still just trying to figure things out, and I can imagine it being tough for certain industries, like, with kids getting out of college, and trying to go to these companies who have been downsizing, kind of thing. So like I think about that song, and I'm just like, yo, like, I feel really fortunate that like one, I'm not only, I have a means of earning income, but I've been thriving, through all of this, kind of thing. So that's my joint right there. I'll drop y'all a link. Y'all gotta listen to it.
I just
It's
looked
dope.
it up. I think it's called Cloud on Me, right?
Boom. That's it right there. Yeah.
Off Collection Agency. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's fire.
For sure. Adam, well, I'm gonna just go since I'm already talking. And that Adam, you can finish it off. I'm gonna pick No More Parties in LA. I don't know why that song ended up on one of my random work playlists. I was like, dang, this song is fire. And I think, I don't recall 100%, but I feel like it talks about like the industry, being in that space, kind of going through the BS of the industry and the things that you want to do, and you kind of want to remove yourself from that. And I see, after listening to that song now, I really just thought about it. Like, I see why Kanye is in Wyoming and all of that stuff. It makes so much sense. But I feel like that in some shape or form, I miss outside, but like I have a new purview on like going outside, going to events, and it's not like the end all be all. Like, I don't have to be at all of it. And I think with that new outlook, I'm able to focus in on like family, my girlfriend, my mental health, right? And really refocusing on me as a person. And then also cooking and baking, because I really want to open up like a new fast food chain. I'm gonna put that out there. But yeah, that's gonna be my next hustle.
Let's get it, bro. I love to eat, so I'm gonna be one of the first ones in line. Just let me know.
Say less, say less.
For me, I was deciding between a couple songs, but I think the one I want to mention is "Free" by Kids See Ghosts, Cudi and Kanye. I was just listening to that before, like right before this podcast, and it's like a pretty chaotic and like I don't know underrated type song from their album that they put out. Uh, but I think it connects to me, especially in the recent days and weeks before of me leading up to graduation, of me being, you know, free from school. I'm not necessarily, trapped by school in any way, shape, or form, but I think I see it more as me closing the chapter of being in college, being in this internship, and kind of opening the door to new beginnings and like a new career for myself. And the ability for me to kind of go out there and get what I want and do what I want for work.
That's fly. That's fly. That's a good song. That's an underrated project. They be trying to clown that whole little rollout, but that's a great project, I think. Well, Don, we want to thank you so much for jumping on here. We always like to give a round of applause to everybody who jumps on here, keeping it real, and sharing so much great advice. As you know, this platform is for the students and for them to kind of have some type of direction and figure out where they're going on in their life journey or their personal map. So we appreciate it so much.
For sure, man. Appreciate y'all, bro. Like I always tell you, like, the platforms that you are creating and providing, man, are important. It's good for, the youth to hear, this information, and this is one of those steps you have to take toward making a better future for yourself. It's like, taking the time to do these things and listen to these conversations. I always say it's something to learn if somebody's talking, it might be 90% done, but it might be at least one or two things in there that's like, actually, that made me think a little different, And again, congrats to you too, Adam. Graduating soon, man. Like that's dope. That's a major accomplishment, man. So clap it up for you too, bro.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
And thank you to y'all for listening, whether this is your morning routine, afternoon, or the thing you do before you go to sleep. Skirt, skirt. We're out.